There are exactly 7 main differences between the next 2 takes. Now stop the video for a second and tell me in the comments down below what you think these differences are. Playing more musically involves several factors including technique, interpretation, expression, and there are many different ways to approach this topic, but today I just want to give you some few quick tips to help you to play music more musically based on the example I just showed, which I know is a simple piece, but these exact same rules apply to any more difficult songs or more difficult compositions you want to play, and it's just easier to introduce these ideas through a simple example, right? The first step, and one of the most important things to do, is to identify the melody of the piece. Usually it is the top voice, and the sheet music also helps you to identify it in many cases, for example with consistent directions of the stems. There's no shame in highlighting melody in your sheet music, don't worry about that. A good melody is usually very much like singing, so if you have big weird jumps in your melody, you might want to double check if every note is part of the melody or not. And then you have to make sure that your playing follows the melody so consistently that your audience will also understand which note is part of the melody and which notes are not. And then we have phrasing. Phrasing refers to the way you shape the music by grouping notes into musical sentences or phrases. To play more musically, focus on creating a sense of shape and direction within each phrase, making sure to breathe where necessary. I hope this makes some sense. But dividing classical music into phrases or sentences can be done by analyzing the musical structure of the piece. But how do I do that? Listen for rests and pauses in the music that can indicate the end of a phrase. Obviously not every time, but if you listen carefully, you probably will be able to tell if that rest or break is ending the section or not. If you see the same note in the same rhythm, so some repetitive patterns like a theme being repeated, that indicates a new phrasing as well. And one of the most obvious is to listen for changes in harmony, which can mean the end of the starting of a phrase. Also, there are structures that are widely used in the classical music world, like the multiples of four, I think. For example, a very popular structure is a period, which is 4 + 4 bars, or in some cases it can be 8 + 8. So if you really check your sheet music and if you start counting, you probably will notice some phrasing points after every 4 or 8 bars. Good phrasing creates structure, supports the musician to express their intended interpretation and to express emotion. It helps musicians to bring out the full potential of the music they are playing, as well as to make it more enjoyable and meaningful for themselves and for their audience as well. The next tip is to pay close attention to the dynamics, and when I'm saying dynamics, I refer to the loudness and the intensity that's being played in the music and the intensity and loudness changes that are happening in the music. So to play more musically, you have to pay attention to the dynamics indicated in the scores, but in some cases the sheet music doesn't say too much about the required dynamics. That's when you have to figure it out yourself. And there's a, well, not like a rule, but something I generally notice in the music, which works 90% of the times, especially when it comes to classical music and the beginner to intermediate level repertoire. When you see a musical phrase, it has a note or notes that are the most important in that section, right? So these are usually the highest notes in the melody. So just increase the intensity towards that note, and then as you leave it and get closer to the end of the phrase, calm the music down. Now in the meantime, the melody can move a little bit up and down, so it's going to move here and there. So make sure to follow these smaller inner motions of the melody, and or as I like to say, take all the turns in the melody. Just listen what is happening in the music. Is it getting more suspense? Is it getting more tense? Or is it about to calm down? You have to listen to these and you just have to go along. My next tip is to use rubato, which is a double-edged sword, so let me just correct myself. Use a little bit of rubato. And rubato basically means you stretch or compress the tempo of the piece or the tempo of a section to make it feel more free or to make it sound more free. And another good one is to listen to other people's playing, listen to your favorite rich players to play the same songs you play or the same pieces you are playing, and use it as a guidance and an inspiration to improve your own playing. But please don't copy their playing exactly as it is. Just try to really observe what they are doing and ask yourself why they're doing the way they do that. Okay, so don't just copy them, just be very, very mindful about this. And then if your playing sounds too articulated or too segmented, you might want to work on your legato playing a little bit, because the smoother the transitions are between notes, the more it feels musical. Legato can create a nice, long-lasting melody feel, which really does wonders to your music. So just try to smoothen out your position changings and get rid of those annoying little gaps between the notes you play. And finally, analyze the pieces you're playing and try to find larger structural elements which gives the piece its general shape. It's like looking at the skeleton of the piece and to see only the important things and not to confuse yourself with all the details. I honestly believe that you don't need a deep analyzation, you only need a general picture of the piece, but by analyzing your pieces, you will have a much deeper understanding about it, and you will see these very core elements. They are kind of like columns, and which are holding the entire piece together from the under, which really is amazing. And by knowing these core elements, it's easier to navigate in the piece. So basically, you will know what's more important and what's less important. You can highlight the more important things, and you can hide a little bit the less important ones. And maybe just an additional thought is to feel free to experiment with different interpretations, try out different dynamics, different phrasings, try out anything that comes to your mind, because that will give you a more full picture of the piece you're playing, and it will help you to decide on your final interpretation, which makes you feel the most comfortable and which makes the most sense to you. I really hope these little tips will help you to bring your music to a whole new level. And if you did enjoy the video, if you think this was useful, helpful, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.